I'm Peter Rees and I'm the City Planning Officer for the City of London. The city has a history of building tall. After the Fire of London of 1666, Christopher Wren built his wonderful church towers and spires, and in those days they were skyscrapers rising above the 2- and 3-storey houses and commercial buildings of the city. So we're no newcomers to tall buildings. And so when we ran out of land around about the millennium, being only 1 square mile and needing to accommodate more international financial businesses and insurance companies, the only way was to go up. And that's why we created the cluster of towers that's now becoming so famous, each with their unusual nicknames, starting with the erotic gherkin and then moving on through the cheese grater and the walkie-talkie and the can of ham. All buildings which are of very distinctive shapes. It's particularly difficult to introduce large buildings, whether they're low or high-rise, into an area which has 2,000 years of history like the City of London. The way to do this is to ensure that the buildings where you build tall are grouped close together and are in a less sensitive part of your area. In the City of London, our cluster of towers is in the eastern end of the city, well away from St Paul's Cathedral and its protected views, and they're clustered closely together so that we maximise the synergy of all those people working in one location and the advantages of public transport. With our 20 railway stations and 7 underground lines, over 90% of our workers come to work by public transport and over 5% walk or cycle. So very few people are coming by car, and that is extremely sustainable and therefore makes the City of London an ideal place to increase office density. When the gherkin was constructed, or 30 St Mary Axe as it was known initially, the public were rather worried about this new tall building rising on the city's skyline. After all, they'd only had the 1960s and 70s slab blocks to contend with up until then, and they'd found them rather lacking in architectural quality and interest. But as the gherkin took shape, people became intrigued with it. And I started to get phone calls from people, even people who'd previously objected, saying, did I realise you could see the building from Epping Forest or from rival points through Kent coming into London? And the next thing was that the press, always keen to devalue things that are done and to find the bad news, nicknamed it the erotic gherkin. It was meant to be an insult. But the public heard the nickname and they said, gherkin, yes, we like that. We'll make that the nickname for the building. The world's financial industries didn't move to Frankfurt simply because there were now tall buildings there. So building tall of itself is not a good thing simply as a means of rebranding. It has very little impact on your economic performance. But if you are successful and you've run out of land, then go for it. Having now planned the city for over a quarter of a century, I've been privileged to work with some of the world's greatest architects on ultra-modern buildings and also on fine conservation projects, restoring historic buildings or refurbishing existing ones. I never like to single out a particular architect or a particular project for new buildings, because I know if I were to single out a modern architect or a fine high-rise project in the city, as soon as I got back to my office there would be 6 copies of it waiting on my desk for approval. So it's best not to have favourites when you're a planner. After all, we don't set out to be popular, we set out to be fair.